So, Gennaro telephoned you in 1984? What happened then? Well, you see our operation here, 50,000 would support 2 full summers of digging. I told him I'd do what I could. So you agreed to do the paper form? Yes. On the dietary habits of juvenile dinosaurs? Yes. You met Gennaro? No, just on the phone, same as Hammond. Did Gennaro say why he wanted this information? Yes, actually. He was planning a museum for children, and he wanted to feature baby dinosaurs or something. He said he was hiring a number of academic consultants. Named them. They were paleontologists like me, a mathematician from Texas named Ian Malcolm, I think, and a couple of ecologists. A system analyst, good group in general. Morris nodded, making notes. So you accepted the consultancy? Yes, I agreed to send him a summary of our work, what we knew about the habits of duck-billed hadrosaurs we found. What kind of information did you send him? Morris asked. Everything. Nesting behavior, territorial ranges, feeding behavior, social behavior, everything. And how did Gennaro respond? He kept calling and calling, sometimes in the middle of the night. Would the dinosaurs eat this? Would they eat that? Should the exhibit include this? I could never understand why he was so worked up. I think dinosaurs are important too, but not that important. They've been dead 65 million years. You would think his calls could wait till morning. I see. And the $50,000? Grant shrugged. I got tired of Gennaro, but $15,000 a year kept us afloat. Morris made a note. And when did the Hammond Foundation begin to fund your research? I'd have to look, but it was around then, mid-'80s. And you know Hammond is just a rich dinosaur enthusiast? Yes. Morris made another note. Look, if the EPA is so concerned about John Hammond and what he's doing, the dinosaur sites in the north, the amber purchases, the island in Costa Rica, why don't you just ask him about it? Well, at the moment we can't. Why not? Because we don't have any evidence of wrongdoing. But personally, I think it's clear John Hammond is evading the law. I was first contacted by the Office of Technology Transfer, the OTT. They monitor the shipments of American technology which might have military significance. They called to say that InGen had 2 areas of possible illegal technology transfer. First, InGen shipped 3 Cray XMPs to Costa Rica. InGen characterized it as a transfer within corporate divisions and said that they weren't for resale. But OTT couldn't imagine why the hell somebody would need that sort of power in Costa Rica. 3 Crays, what is that? Some sort of computer? Morris nodded. Very powerful supercomputers. To put it in perspective, 3 Crays represents more computing power than any other privately held company in America, and InGen sent the machines to Costa Rica. You have to wonder why. I give up. Why? Nobody knows. And the hoods are even more worrisome, Morris continued. Hoods are automated gene sequencers, machines that work out genetic codes by themselves. They're so new that they haven't even been put on the restricted list yet. But any engineering lab is likely to have one, if it can afford the $500,000 price tag, that is. He flipped through his notes. Well, it seems InGen shipped 24 hood sequencers to their island in Costa Rica. Again, they said it was a transfer within divisions and not an export, Morris said. There wasn't much that OTT could do. They're not officially concerned with use, but InGen was obviously setting up one of the most powerful genetic engineering facilities in the world in an obscure Central American country. A country with no regulations. That kind of thing has been done before. There had already been cases of American bioengineering companies moving to another country so they wouldn't be hampered by regulations and rules. The most flagrant, Morris explained, was the Biosyn's rabies case. In 1986, Genetic Biocin Corporation of Cupertino tested a bioengineered rabies vaccine on a farm in Chile. They didn't inform the government of Chile or the farm workers involved. They simply released the vaccine. It was outrageous. It was irresponsible. It was criminally negligent. But no action was taken against Biocin. The Chilean farmers who unwittingly risked their lives were ignorant peasants. The government of Chile had an economic crisis to worry about, and the American authorities had no jurisdiction. So, Louis Dodgson, the geneticist responsible for the test, was still working at Biocin. Biocin was still as reckless as ever, and other American companies were hurrying to set up facilities in foreign countries that lacked sophistication about genetic research. Countries that perceived genetic engineering to be like any other high-tech development, and thus welcomed it to their lands and aware of the dangers posed. So, in a nutshell, that's why we began our investigations of InGen, Morris said, about 3 weeks ago. And what have you actually found? Grant said. Not much, Morris admitted. When I go back to San Francisco, we'll probably have to close the investigation. And I think I'm about finished here. He started packing up his briefcase. By the way, what does juvenile hyperspace mean? That's just a fancy label for my report, Grant said. Hyperspace. It's a term for multidimensional space, like three-dimensional tic-tac-toe. If you were to take all the behaviors of an animal, its eating and movement and sleeping, you could plot the animal within the multidimensional space. Some paleontologists refer to the behavior of an animal as occurring in an ecological hyperspace. Juvenile hyperspace would just refer to behavior of juvenile dinosaurs, if you wanted to be as pretentious as possible. At the far end of the trailer, the phone rang. Ellie answered it, and she said, "He's in a meeting right now. Can he call you back?" Morris snapped his briefcase shut and stood. "Thanks for your help, and the beer." "No problem." Grant walked with Morris to the door, and Morris said, "Did Hammond ever ask you for any physical materials from your site? Bones or eggs or anything like that?" "No." "Dr. Sattler mentioned that you do some genetic work here." "Well, not exactly," Grant said. "When we remove fossils that are broken or for some other reason not suitable for museum preservation, we send the bones out to a lab that grinds them up and tries to extract proteins for us. The proteins are then identified and the report is sent back to us." "Which lab is that?" Medical Biologic Services in Salt Lake." "How'd you choose them?" "Competitive bids." "The lab has nothing to do with InGen?" Morris asked. "Not that I know." They came to the door of the trailer. Grant opened it and felt a rush of hot air from outside. Morris paused. "One last thing," Morris said. "Suppose InGen wasn't really making a museum exhibit. Is there anything else they could have done with the information that you gave them?" Grant laughed. "Sure. They could feed a baby hadrosaur." Morris laughed too. "A baby hadrosaur, that'd be something to see. How big were they?" "About so," Grant said, holding his hands 6 inches apart. "Squirrel-sized." "And how long before they become full-grown?" "Just 3 years," Grant said, "give or take." Morris held out his hand. "Well, thanks again for your help." "Yeah, take it easy on the drive back," Grant said. He watched for a moment as Morris walked back to his car, and then he shut the trailer door. "Well, what did you think?" Grant said. "Naive," Ellie shrugged. "You like the part where John Hammond is the evil arch-villain?" Grant laughed. "John Hammond is about as sinister as Walt Disney."